Hello, everyone. My name is Gwendolyn Van Sant, the Vice Chair of the Du Bois Legacy Committee. I'm happy to be presenting day 2 of our virtual festival. Today, we're looking really at the sacred journeys of Dr. Du Bois for his 154th birthday and our 5th annual Du Bois Festival. So first, you will hear from Leah Reed. Leah Reed is, her family is a longtime resident of Great Barrington, an African-American community. So we will hear a song from her and also some reflections. Then we will hear from Delano Burrowes on his Great Barrington project, looking at Du Bois and being inspired by the souls of Black folk. Then we will hear from our newly renamed Du Bois Regional Middle School, and we will hear from several youth and their reflections on Dr. Du Bois, as well as their principal, Ben Doran. Then we will move on to a selection from Dr. Nell Morgan and Wanda Houston in the Sorrow Songs. This is a signature piece of our Legacy Festival that we like to present every year, so please enjoy. Then we will hear from additional youth, Julianne on the reflection of a statue in Great Barrington, and also Spencer Matthias from our youngest committee ambassador for Dr. W.E.B. Du Bois. And that will be our program for this evening. Thank you so much for joining us for our 5th annual Legacy Festival.
My name is Leah Reed, and I am a member of the W.E.B. Du Bois Legacy Committee here in Great Barrington, Massachusetts. And I have to say that it is an unimaginable honor for me to be a part of this inaugural committee for our native son, Dr. W.E.B. Du Bois. My grandmother, the late Edna B. Wilkes of Great Barrington, Massachusetts, church member of the Clinton AME Zion Church, was a staunch advocate for Dr. Du Bois and bringing notoriety and highlighting the works that he's done, not only for our community, but for society as a whole. It meant a great deal to her to have his homestead here and to be there at the site when it was dedicated. I was 16 years old when she came and pulled me from Monument Mountain Regional High School and said, "We're setting up a marker. They want to do a little quick piece. I need you to sing." I said, absolutely. Very nervous. But growing up in the church, in all the choirs and singing, it was something that I loved to do and that I was moved to do and happy to do for my grandmother. Today, I'm here to talk about the Sorrow Songs with Du Bois. And our sorrow songs, Negro spirituals, they're impactful, they're moving. It's emotion, it's feelings that you can't fake. It's there, it's raw, and it's real. At this time, I'd like to read a small piece from Dr. Du Bois's Souls of Black Folks, just to kind of give you a better understanding of what he was talking about. They walked in darkness, sang songs in the olden days, sorrow songs, for they were weary at heart. And so before each thought that I have written in this book, I've set a phrase, a haunting echo of these weird old songs in which the soul of the Black slave spoke to men. Ever since I was a child, these songs have stirred me strangely. They came out of the South unknown to me, one by one. And yet at once I knew them as of me and of mine. Then in after years, when I came to Nashville, I saw the great temple building of these songs towering over the pale city. To me, Jubilee Hall seemed ever made of the songs themselves, and its bricks were red with blood and dust of toil. Out of them rose for me morning, noon, and night, and bursts of wonderful melody, full of the voices of my brothers and sisters full of the voices of the past. Little beauty has America given the world, save the rude grandeur God himself stamped on her bosom. The human spirit in this new world has expressed itself in vigor and ingenuity rather than in beauty. And so by fateful chance, the Negro folk song, the rhythmic cry of the slave, stands today not simply as the soul of American music, but as the most beautiful expression of human experience born this side of the seas. It has been neglected. It has been and is half despised. And above all, it has been persistently mistaken and misunderstood. But notwithstanding, it still remains as the singular spiritual heritage of the nation and the greatest gift of the Negro people. And at this time, I'm going to sing a song for you that is one of the sorrow songs that Du Bois referenced, but also was the favorite song of my grandmother, the late Edna B. Wilkes. The song is called Steal Away. Steal away, steal away, steal away to Jesus. Steal away, steal away home. I ain't got long to stay. My Lord, he calls me by the thunder, the trumpet sound within my soul. I ain't got long to stay. Green trees are bending, poor sinners stand a trembling. The trumpet sound within my soul. I ain't got long to stay. Steal away, steal away, steal away to Jesus. Steal away, steal away home. I ain't got long Thank you.
William Edward Burghardt Du Bois was the first Black man to earn a doctorate from Harvard University. When Du Bois was asked about his historic achievement, he said, "The honor, I assure you, was Harvard's." This is the legacy of W.E.B. Du Bois. It's that flipping of the narrative that Black people need to be grateful for any crumbs given to us, when we've earned them through, often in the literal sense, blood, sweat, and many, many tears. We can and we should demand not just a seat at the table, but an acknowledgement that the tables, academic, political, social, and capitalist institutions, were built by us and on the backs of scarred by whips ancestors. We don't have to politely ask, but can instead loudly and confidently demand a right to be seen, to be genuinely seen, and to confront others and how they see us and why they see us that way. I didn't read any of Du Bois's writings until I was well into adulthood. This sounds remarkable if you know that I grew up in the same small, mostly white, small Massachusetts town, Great Barrington, as Du Bois. I resisted reading his work, and that of most Black writers, though, and I didn't understand at the time, but I was scared. I was scared because reading them might bring to light how much pain I'd was going through, much of it connected to anti-Black racism, both macro and micro. I lived in a place that wanted to talk about racism and did talk about racism, but as an over there, not around here kind of a thing. Who's I supposed to talk about these things, these feelings with? When I opened up the first pages of Souls of Black Folk, there it was on the first page. How does it feel to be a problem? As soon as I read that, it all made sense, and I understood that though I never read Du Bois's words, I'd been living them. My entire existence until then had been rooted around that one idea: how does it feel to be a problem? It didn't feel good. It didn't feel hopeful. It didn't feel like I could ever just be, but always had to be concerned with not being a problem. I'd internalized it so deeply that all my life experiences were seen through the lens of whether it made me be seen as a problem. Spelling bee champion in 6th grade. Good. You're not a problem. Handcuffed on the street by racist white police officers as an adult. Bad. You're a problem. My feelings about being handcuffed didn't even matter. It's the look I saw in the eyes of people walking by. Even the Black woman who averted eyes out of what I perceived as shame. Look at him. Getting himself arrested, making our people look bad. He's a problem. I needed to make others, white people, change their minds. I was always looking for clues that I'd succeeded. This was the double consciousness that Du Bois wrote about. I now understood after reading him. There were two of me. There'd always been two of me. The inner one who was very justifiably angry, and external me who was afraid that showing that anger or speaking up about sometimes subtle racist actions of others, including my friends, how would it make me look in their eyes? Would they change their minds and decide I was like all the others, a problem? I didn't have to ask myself, why do you care? And why do you keep caring? But we all live in a country that prioritizes whiteness in every aspect of our society, so it's kind of hard not to care on some level. Reading Du Bois and others, I was learning compassion, self-compassion, by accepting it's a journey to self-love, to not care what others think, and where you're told your lips, your nose, your skin color, everything about you is considered undesirable. Self-love isn't just hard, it can sometimes seem unattainable. Connecting to Black writers connected me to self-love, and I started to let down the mask and push up against that voice that tried to convince me I was a problem. People started to resist this true me, the new me, the true me. One who now called out their biases, be they racial, socioeconomic, gendered, etc. And when I hesitated to speak up, I'd ask myself with compassion, what are you afraid of? It always came back to, will they see me as a problem? Sometimes I retreated, and that was okay, because reading writers like Du Bois was showing me we'd absorb this idea into our DNA. that we're a problem, and it's a long journey to unlearn something that was learned not just by me, but an entire generation of enslaved and then free, but not really free Black folks. Souls of Black folks started me on that journey. I was a shy kid growing up. On report cards, teachers would say, he does great academically, but he won't speak to anyone. He sits in the corner just reading. I was scared of my voice because it was exhausting, always being conscious of how you're seen and wondering if you might reveal the real you behind the words and what are the consequences of that. Today, I have a voice, and it can be a loud and direct one. I used to think that talking about race and injustice would brand me a problem, and honestly, it probably sometimes does. The difference is that I no longer care as much. About 4 months ago, I wrote an article in this national publication about my experiences growing up in Great Barrington as one of the few Black people and how I internalized this like self-hatred. And I wasn't prepared for the response to that article. People, hundreds of them, were vocal. They were vocally negative, and some of the comments were very personal and very mean. I disrupted their narrative of racism, and I was a problem, and I was okay with that. And that's huge growth. But I also got messages, lots of them, from so many who said, thank you. Thank you for speaking your truth and helping me acknowledge how much I've been affected by racism and how deep it goes and how much it hurts and how angry I am. But I don't want to show anybody that anger. And I now know I'm not alone. I'm currently working on an art piece, the Great Barrington Project, Unbleaching the Souls of Black Folk. It's a multi-city community experience where non-Black people are asked to explore, deeply and uncomfortably explore how they see Black people. And Black people are asked, how are they seen by non-Black people, and how do they see themselves? In each city, each of which will correspond to an important city in the Great Migration, the Great Black Migration in the United States, there will be a community event and a discussion with local people to continue the conversation, and more importantly, to continue the listening, because it's crucial, that listening. For many of us who never felt our voice was important, sometimes you just may listen to. The subtitle is called Unbleaching the Souls of Black Folk, and it's in reference to Du Bois writing, he, the Black man, Black person, shall not bleach his Negro soul in a flood of white Americanism, for he knows that Negro blood has a message for the world. Du Bois wrote about race, of course, but he also wrote about gender and socioeconomic problems and how capitalism is at the core of them all. Capitalism has often been taught as the Holy Grail. If you make it to this level, they're going to stop seeing you as a problem. Just mute some of your Blackness, whiten it up a little bit when you're out in public. This isn't true. It's never been true. And we stop holding on to this idea, it's liberation, because it's keeping us in new forms of enslavement. When we reclaim our Blackness, unbleach our Black souls in whatever shape or form those Black souls appear, only then will we find freedom. This awareness is the legacy of W.E.B. Du Bois. I'm grateful to talk about my journeys today, and have conversations about how I got here. The real joy, though, comes when I go to bed at night. I can look at myself in the mirror and know my external self is much closer to my inner self than I ever imagined it could be, though there's still much work to do, and there probably always will be, and that's okay. I can then look at my bedroom wall, the wall behind me, and there's a photo of myself, me as a child. I'm smiling in that photo, but I know what me was going through inside. I know the self-loathing, the fear, that he thought his very existence was a problem. I now look at that photo and I can say, hey, it's been a slow, long, tough ride, but you made it. You no longer hide in corners afraid to speak. And you're breaking free from hundreds of years of indoctrinated thinking. You are not and you never were a problem. And I feel him, I feel that me, the child in me, saying back to me, thank you. Thank you for not giving up. That's the legacy of W.E.B. Du Bois. All of us who stop this cycle of believing we are a problem because we are Black, Asian, Latinx, Muslim, Jewish, transgender, queer, we identify as a woman, or poor, person with a disability, etc., etc. We are W.E.B. Du Bois's legacy. We are not a problem. And we don't have to feel grateful that more people are listening to our stories and voices. As W.E.B. Du Bois would have said, it's not an honor, it's our right. And that is the legacy of W.E.B. Du Bois. Thank you.
My name is Everett Pacheco. I'm about to read a poem that was sent by Dr. of W.E.B. Du Bois to Martin Luther King Jr. in 1956. The poem is by Jacob Frappucius. I hope you enjoy. Fear not, the little flock, the foe, madly seeks thine overthrow. Not is rage and power, though thy courage often fails. Seeming power o'er God's saints lasts but a little hour.
I started at the middle school as a 5th grader. Our name was Monument Valley Middle School. And yeah, that was a great name, but it didn't have a real meaning to us as students. So now as an 8th grader, our name has been changed to W.E.B. Du Bois Middle School. And I think that was such a worthy change because Du Bois was such an amazing person and activist, and he used his life to create change to the better. And I think that being able to go to a school after his name is truly amazing.
Hello, I'm Keely Demery. I'm in 8th grade at Du Bois Middle School, and for the anniversary, the 154th anniversary of W.E.B. Du Bois, I'll be reading an excerpt from his book, The Souls of Black Folks. Herein lies the tragedy of the age. Not that men are poor, all men know something of poverty. Not that men are wicked, for who is good? Not that men are ignorant. What is truth? Nay, but that men knows so little of men. This quote really spoke to me because it is so truthful in its delivery, and it is very applicable to not only the age of which it was written at, but to now, for however we experience our adversity. And for Black History Month, I think this is a really important quote to bring up for a lot of people, especially if you were to bring in some other Black writers like Martin Luther King who talk about the white moderate. This piece of work right here is so easily applied to such a thing, and it is important that we take these words and we act on them, as they will propel us forward in our understanding and our advancement of not only the people around us, but people in color especially. Thanks so much.
Hi, my name is Ben Doran. I'm the principal at the W.E.B. Du Bois Regional Middle School, part of the Berkshire Hills Regional School District. Really excited to share some thoughts with you today as we enter the 154th anniversary of Du Bois's birth. This is our second year of being the W.E.B. Du Bois Regional Middle School. Really excited and proud about the name change. Couldn't have come at a more exciting time. I really started understanding a lot about Du Bois when I moved here. This is my 11th year. I remember just seeing signs driving into town that says birthplace of W.E.B. Du Bois. And I had known something of Du Bois, I think, for my own education, but not much and definitely not enough. I knew a little bit about Du Bois and Booker Washington and their debates. I knew a little bit about his talks about the talented 10th and responsibility and the like. And I found all that intriguing in my education and I think through my life, but I really didn't know very much. So then moving to this area where he was born, I started reading a lot more, understanding more about Du Bois and reading his work, but then really understanding him when the Town of Great Barrington in our area really jumped into it with the 150th anniversary back in 2018. And then I couldn't have been more honored to have the towns all vote and then for the school committee to vote for the name change. Just an honor that I think is just really appropriate. Our students have seemed really excited about the name change and learning about Du Bois. It's also created some controversy. He's not a easy figure to understand always, and as well, he was a very challenging figure in our country's history, both as a sociologist, an historian, a political activist, an organizer. So for me, there's a lot of value in the complexity of Du Bois, which to me is education. In fact, I'd like to share with you a quote that has been inspiring me this year and really keeping me focused on what I think is important. So this is a quote from W.E.B. Du Bois. about, in my mind, education, which I'll talk about. Nevertheless, here are social problems before us, demanding careful study, questions awaiting satisfactory answers. We must study, we must investigate, we must attempt to solve, and the utmost that the world can demand is not lack of human interest and moral conviction, but rather the heart quality of fairness and an earnest desire for the truth, despite its possible unpleasantness. Now, Du Bois wrote that as part of the Philadelphia Negro in a chapter called The Credibility of the Results. It's a book that was published in 1898, so even before the 20th century. This was still in the 19th century. Du Bois is 30 years old, just finishing graduate work at Harvard, and having come back from Germany and study, and having done some work in Philadelphia. This was his first large published work. He was amazing. He basically was one of the authors of this thing we call sociology now, which is kind of a normal thing in the 20th and now 21st century. But nobody had done what he had done before in many ways. He was in Philadelphia and looked at what was there. What was the experience of the African-American population as they had migrated from the South after the Civil War and after Reconstruction, of the population of African-Americans who had been there, that were actually born in the North or brought to the North. So this was an actual study that had never been done before, and he just lays it bare, both the information, what is there, what does that mean, and then what are the implications? To me, that's what education is, and I love that last part of the quote, the rather heart quality of fairness and an earnest desire for the truth, despite its possible unpleasantness. I love trying to keep that in mind. We must fairly learn about things, deal with things, address things, react, respond, move forward. But sometimes it's not pleasant. Sometimes things are difficult. And I think Du Bois really shows us that in his whole life, his ability to move through things that are not comfortable or pleasant, but really searching for the truth and really opening up to larger truths. And to me, that's a great metaphor for education. I'm really trying hard at the middle school to lead a lot of these pieces around being fair, but also leaning in and being uncomfortable and teaching our faculty, teaching our students, teaching our community that this is the way, I think, towards equity and a much more fair community. We're doing that through curriculum. Our curriculum is expanding to really include a lot of things. The Massachusetts Frameworks has really expanded over the past 10 years, which is exciting, along with national kind of curricular initiatives. The pandemic has really slowed things down. I really wished to just explode in many ways with studies of Du Bois and celebrations. We just haven't been able to bring people to the school. We've really just been focused on making sure students are okay, making sure we get students in, making sure we're just getting through basic curriculum as we've been slowed down. This year has really seen a lot more opportunity than last year. So I'm excited about this year and then moving into the future years as we get into the 155th, 156th celebration of his birth. But we've started a bunch of student groups based on different areas that I think that haven't been attended to in the past. Gender and Sexuality Alliance. We're starting a BIPOC group in the school. And I think that students are really starting to feel heard in a way that they haven't in the past. But that's also true because our community is diversifying. Over the past 10 years, I have seen a real shift in the demographics of our community, both in income distribution, but also in the different races, ethnicities, cultures that have really entered. And another big thing that wasn't called this when Du Bois was around, but I think that he is really in many ways the progenitor of this thing called restorative practices and restorative justice. But this idea that we come into communities that heal, we come into communities that take responsibility for each other, but also when there's harm or disruptions to communities, we really seek to understand, communicate, and repair some of those harms. But I feel like that for me with Du Bois, and then actually having just talked to the students a little bit about Martin Luther King and his relationship to W.E.B. Du Bois, I think that was very much one of the ways that Du Bois mentored Dr. King in a lot of his work. Which then brings us to what education could be. So here's a quote from The Souls of Black Folk, just written 5 years after the Philadelphia Negro study and the sociology. But this is what inspired me back in 2018, as I was thinking about a vision for our school and really starting to understand Du Bois much more deeply. But when we have vaguely said that education will set this tangle straight, what have we uttered but a truism? Training for life teaches living. 150 years ago, our task would have seemed easier. Then, Dr. Johnson blandly assured us that education was needful solely for the embellishments of life and was useless for ordinary vermin. Today, we have climbed to heights where we could open at least the outer courts of knowledge to all, display its treasures to many, and select the few to whom its mystery of truth is revealed, not wholly by birth or the accidents of the stock market, but at least in part according to deftness and aim, talent and character, to make here in human education that ever necessary combination of the permanent and the contingent, of the ideal and the practical in workable equilibrium, has been there, as it must ever be in every age and place, a matter of infinite experiment and frequent mistakes. Well, I love that quote because it talks to me a lot about what education can be. 150 years before Du Bois wrote this in 1903, thinking about at that point 1750 or the 1750s, education seemed just for the elite. It was something that people used for a lot of reasons, but very few people. By the time Du Bois is writing this in 1903, we're trying to educate everyone, this idea of universal education or a public education. And then obviously now 120 some odd years after Du Bois wrote this, we are trying, of course, to educate everybody and to make sure that education is a thing that helps everybody move along economically, but also socially, spiritually, and really is the path, as we know, to a fairer and, of course, a more solid, stable community. So to me, it's that pop, 1750, 1900, 2020, 2022, where we can really see what education could be. And again, at Du Bois Middle School, we're trying to see what is ahead, trying to look at integrated curriculum, trying to understand science, social studies, English, the arts, even mathematics, as all working together for a deeper understanding of our community, of our society. The district is working on proficiencies, so trying to move away from seat time and putting education or knowledge or information into a kid's head and leaving kids behind who don't quickly take that, or holding kids back who are ready to really think more creatively. The idea of proficiencies is, what is the big picture vision we have for kids coming out of Berkshire Hills, and how do we in elementary, middle, and high school help kids be creative and enter an idea of education. And then, of course, identity, having students see themselves in school. School isn't for some or few, school is for everyone, and how do we make sure that we see everyone in our school, no matter who you are. And again, I think Du Bois really, really shows us how to do that through his life, as he learned from a very early age some ideas about what he thought education in the world should be. And then towards the end of his life, when I think he saw a worldview and a really opening up of how we all can and work together and the challenges that that faces. And then, of course, that quote that I said, I love that really learning is a matter of infinite experiment and frequent mistakes. That is really a value that I think really we can hold true. So from my perspective, I think it's really important that we work as a middle school to make sure that we hold all students. We get them from elementary school to high school in a way where they can keep that vision that Du Bois, and I love our Du Bois t-shirt. This is an image I think that was supported and authored by folks at Railroad Street. And I just love the idea that our community coming together, really appreciate the Legacy Festival and keeping Du Bois center and present and alive in our world. Thank you very much.
Hello, I'm Wanda Houston.
And I'm Mary Nell Morgan Brown. The songs we will sing are from The Souls of Black Folk by W.E.B. Du Bois. We make selections from Du Bois's list of 10 master songs, and we include his most favorite spiritual.
Du Bois placed bars of music from a sorrow song and lines of poetry from the literary canon of his day at the beginning of each of the 14 chapters. These are called epigraphs.
The sorrow songs, also known as traditional spirituals or Negro folk songs, are key to guiding us to a clearer understanding of what Du Bois is saying in his most popular book.
We will weave into our program several quotes from the last chapter, chapter 14, the Sorrow Songs, the only chapter that does not start with the word of. Could that be because the entire book is a sorrow song?
And we quote, "They that walked in darkness sang songs in the olden days,
Sorrow songs.
for they were weary at heart."
And so before each thought that I have written in this book, I have set a phrase, a haunting echo of these weird old songs in which the soul of the black slave spoke to men.
Ever since I was a child, these songs have stirred me strangely. They came out of the South unknown to me, one by one, and yet at once I knew them as of me and as of mine.
Then in after years, when I came to Nashville, I saw the great temple builded of these songs towering over the pale city. To me, Jubilee Hall seemed ever made of the songs themselves, and its bricks were red with the blood and dust of toil.
Out of them rose for me every morning, noon, and night bursts of wonderful melody, full of the voices of my brothers and sisters, full of the voices of the past.
When the United States refused to fulfill its promises of land to the freedmen, a brigadier general went down to the Sea Islands to carry the news.
An old woman on the outskirts of the throng began singing this song. All the masses joined with her, swaying.
And the soldier wept.
End of quote. Nobody knows the trouble I see.
Nobody knows my sorrow. Nobody knows the trouble I see. Glory, hallelujah. Sometimes I'm up,
sometimes I'm down. Oh, yes, Lord.
Sometimes I'm almost to the ground.
Oh, yes,
Lord. Nobody knows the trouble I see.
Nobody knows but Jesus.
Nobody knows the trouble I see.
Glory, hallelujah. Although you see me going long so, oh yes, Lord.
I have my trials here below. Oh, yes, Lord. Oh, nobody knows the trouble I see.
Nobody knows my sorrow.
Nobody knows the trouble I see. Glory, hallelujah.
Quoting Du Bois, who asks,
What are these songs, and what do they mean?
I know little of music and can say nothing in technical phrase, but I know something of men, and knowing them, I know that these songs are the articulate message of the slave to the world.
They tell us in these eager days that life was joyous to the black slave, careless and happy. I can easily believe this of some, of many,
But not all.
They are the music of an unhappy people, of the children of disappointment. They tell of death and suffering and unvoiced longing toward a truer world.
The songs are indeed the siftings of centuries. The music is far more ancient than the words. End of quote.
Swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home.
Swing low,
Swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home. I looked over Jordan, and what did I see? Coming for to carry me home.
A band of angels coming after me,
coming for to carry me home. If you get there before I do, coming for to carry me home.
Tell all my
friends I'm coming too, coming for to carry me home. I'm sometimes up, sometimes down,
coming
for to carry me home. But still my soul
is heaven bound,
coming for to carry me home. Swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home.
Swing low,
Swing low,
sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home. Again, we quote Du Bois.
Through all the sorrow songs, there breathes a hope, a faith in the ultimate justice of things. The minor cadences of despair change often to triumph and calm confidence.
Sometimes it is faith in life, sometimes it is faith in death. Sometimes assurance of boundless justice in some fair world beyond. But whichever it is, the meaning is always clear. That
At sometime, somewhere, Men will judge men by their souls and not by their skins.
Is such a hope justified? Do the sorrow songs sing true? End of quote.
My Lord, what a morning. My Lord, what a morning. My Lord, what a morning. When the stars begin to fall. You'll hear the trumpet sound to wake the nations underground, looking to my God's right hand when the stars begin to fall. You'll hear the sinner moan to wake the nations underground, looking to my God's right hand when the stars begin to fall. You'll hear the Christian shout to wake the nations underground, looking to my God's right hand when the stars begin to fall. Oh, my Lord, what a morning. My Lord, what a morning. My Lord, what a morning. When the stars begin to fall. When the stars began to fall.
To quote Du Bois again, as in olden time, the words of these hymns were improvised by some leading minstrel of the religious band.
The circumstances of the gathering, however, the rhythm of the songs, and the limitations of allowable thought confined the poetry for the most part to single or double lines, and they seldom were expanded to quatrains or longer tells, although there are some few examples of sustained efforts, chiefly paraphrases of the Bible. End of quote.
For Du Bois, Roll, Jordan, Roll is a song of many waters, one that he considered to be number 4 of the 10 master songs, but he didn't use it as one of his epigraphs.
Using Roll, Jordan, Roll as our example, we will now demonstrate regional differences of the same song. I will sing a version that was performed by Topsy Chapman in 12 Years a Slave, the movie that was based on the true story of Solomon Northup, and what you might have heard in my church out of Chicago, Illinois. Like this, it goes like this. Went down to the river Jordan where John baptized 3. When I walked to the devil in hell, saying, John ain't baptized me. I say, roll, Jordan, roll. Roll, Jordan, roll. My soul arise in heaven, Lord, for the years when Jordan rolled. Well, some say John was a Baptist. Some say John was a Jew, but I say John was a preacher of God, and my Bible says so too. Hallelujah, now roll, Jordan, roll. Roll, roll, Jordan, roll. My soul arise in heaven, Lord, for the year when Jordan roll.
I have used the melody of Roll, Jordan, Roll to write a song about my experience of wading in the Bani, B-A-N-I, River, and the Niger River when I traveled to Nigeria several decades ago. I will start with the song as I learned it as a child and as I very well might have heard it in my mother's womb. Then I will move to the words that I wrote after my trip to Lagos, Nigeria in West Africa. Roll, Jordan, roll, roll, Jordan, roll. I want to go to heaven when I die to hear old Jordan roll. My mother, you ought to go there. Yes, my Lord. You'll be sitting in the kingdom when the mighty river roll. Roll, Jordan, roll, roll, Jordan, roll. I want to go to heaven when I die to see that river roll. And then you continue the songs naming members of your family and the community, the preacher, the teacher. And so when I had that experience, I wrote these words. Roll, Bonnie, roll, roll, Niger, roll. You have to go home to Africa to see those rivers roll. My father, you ought to go there. Yes, my Lord. You'll be sitting in the kingdom when those mighty rivers roll. Roll, Bonnie, roll, roll, Niger, roll. You have to go home to Africa to see those rivers roll. Roll, Bonnie, roll, roll, Niger, roll. You have to go home to Africa to see those rivers roll.
The Song of Songs, according to Du Bois, is still away. It is number 10 on his list of master songs, and it is the epigraph for chapter 10 of the Faith of Fathers. Chapter 10 is about the meaning of religion and the role of the church within the veil.
To quote Du Bois, the Negro Church of today is the social center of Negro life in the United States and the most characteristic expression of African character. Take a typical church in a small Virginia town. It is the First Baptist, a roomy brick edifice seating 500 or more persons, tastefully finished in Georgia pine, with a carpet and a small organ and stained glass windows. Underneath is a large assembly room with benches.
This building is the central clubhouse of a community of 1,000 or more Negroes. Various organizations meet here: the church proper, the Sunday school, 2 or 3 insurance societies, women's societies, secret societies, and mass meetings of various kinds. Entertainments, suppers, and lectures are held besides the 5 or 6 regular weekly religious services. Considerable sums of money are collected and expended here. Employment is found for the idle, strangers are introduced, news is disseminated, and charity distributed.
At the same time, this social, intellectual, and economic center is the religious center of great power. The church often stands as a real conserver of morals, a strengthener of family life, and the final authority on what is good and right.
The music of Negro religion is that plaintive rhythmic melody with its touching minor cadences, which, despite caricature and defilement, still remains the most original and beautiful expression of human life and longing, yet born on American soil.
Sprung from the African forests, it became the one true expression of a people's sorrow, despair, and hope. End of quote. steal away, steal away, steal away to Jesus, steal away, steal away home. I ain't got long to stay here. My Lord, He calls me. He calls me by the thunder. The trumpet sounds within my soul. I ain't got long to stay here.
Green trees are bending, poor sinners stand a-trembling. The trumpet sounds within my soul. I ain't got long to stay.
Steal away, steal away, steal away to Jesus. Steal away, steal away home. I ain't got long to stay here.
To quote Du Bois, and remember, this was written in 1903.
The silently growing assumption of this age is that the probation of races is past.
Such an assumption is the arrogance of peoples irreverent towards time and ignorant of the deeds of men.
So woefully unorganized is sociological knowledge that the meaning of progress, the meaning of swift and slow in human doing, and the limits of human perfectibility are veiled, unanswered sphinxes on the shores of science.
Your country? How came it yours? Before the pilgrims landed, we were here. Here we have brought our three gifts and mingled them with yours, a gift of story and song, soft, stirring melody in an ill-harmonized and unmelodious land, the gift of sweat and brawn, to beat back the wilderness, conquer the soil, and lay the foundations of this vast economic empire. And the third, a gift of the Spirit.
Around us, the history of the land has centered for thrice 100 years, and we have found peace only in the altars of God, of the God of right.
Actively, we have woven ourselves with the very warp and woof of this nation, and generation after generation have pleaded with a headstrong, careless people to despise not justice, mercy, and truth, lest the nation be smitten with a curse.
Our song, our toil, our cheer, and warning have been given to this nation in blood brotherhood and sisterhood. Are not these gifts worth the giving? Is not this work and striving?
Would America have been America without her Negro people?
End of quote.
Du Bois' favorite spiritual will be our final number, Go Down Moses.
When Israel was in Egypt's land,
Let my people go, oppressed so hard they could not stand. Let my people go. Go down, Moses, way down in Egypt's land. Tell old Pharaoh to let my people go.
Thus saith the Lord, bold Moses said,
Let my people go. If not, I'll smite your firstborn dead. Let my people go.
No more shall they in bondage toil.
Let my people go. Let them come out with Egypt's spoil. Let my people go. Go down, Moses, way down in Egypt's land. Tell old Pharaoh to let my people go.
Hi, I'm Julianne. I'm a senior at Lenox High School, and I'm here to talk about why I think it's important to memorialize Dr. Du Bois with a statue. In my humanities class in school, we spent an entire term discussing the significance of sculpture in the Renaissance. As we scrolled through images of sculptures by the likes of Donatello and Michelangelo, the statues all depicted either religious figures like Mary and Jesus or prominent military and political leaders. My teachers emphasized that the artwork of any given era is indicative of a culture's values. In other words, through examining the sculpture of the Renaissance, it is evident that European cultures of the time were intensely focused on a very exclusive group of people. While I found the artwork beautiful and impressive, as someone who is not a man, not Christian, and certainly not a military leader, I find it very difficult to connect to a culture that idealizes the figures shown in European Renaissance sculpture. Thankfully, I live in 21st century Western Massachusetts, not 15th century Italy. However, the people we choose to memorialize with sculpture still embody our values as a community. If we continue to solely highlight very specific groups of people, we distance ourselves from huge swaths of the population. Luckily, we are a region that has borne the achievements of a very diverse group of figures. Visionaries from Edith Wharton to Mom Bet have called the Berkshires their home. W.E.B. Du Bois, one of the most influential authors and political activists of the civil rights era, was born in Great Barrington. Dr. Du Bois, arguably no less an influential and important figure than the likes of Marcus Aurelius or Emperor Constantine, doesn't fit into the boxes so clearly outlined in Renaissance sculpture. He was Black and primarily an academic. For these reasons, by memorializing Dr. Du Bois with a statue, Great Barrington could send a very clear message that we as a community value a much wider range of individuals and perspectives than the exclusive cultures of Renaissance Europe. I hope that my children and grandchildren will study sculptures depicting people of all different ethnicities, religions, genders, and talents, and I believe that installing a statue of W.E.B. Du Bois would be an incredible first step.
Hello, my name is Spencer Matthias Reed. I am 11 years old and in 5th grade. Dr. W.E.B. Du Bois was a great man, and he was the first Black person to graduate from Harvard University in Boston with a PhD. I've just learned a great quote from Dr. Du Bois that says, "Children learn more from what you are than what you teach." I just had an experience at my school where a teacher didn't listen to me as one of her students. I tried to teach my substitute teacher about Dr. Du Bois and his family. The teacher didn't want to hear what I had to say, and she tried to correct me on my information about his family, but she was wrong. I learned that the teacher didn't want to receive any education from me, and that's sad because she missed a chance to learn and teach others what she didn't know. I learned a lot that day. I think that is what Dr. Du Bois was saying in this quote.
In Black Reconstruction, Dr. Du Bois dealt with the almost universally accepted concept that civilization virtually collapsed in the South during Reconstruction because Negroes had a measure of political power. Dr. Du Bois marshaled irrefutable evidence that, far from collapsing, the Southern economy was recovering in these years. Within 5 years, the cotton crop had been restored, and in the succeeding 5 years had exceeded pre-war levels. At the same time, other economic activity had ascended so rapidly the rebirth of the South was almost completed. Beyond this, he restored to light the most luminous achievement of the Reconstruction. It brought free public education into existence, not only for the benefit of the Negro, but it opened school doors to poor whites. He documented the substantial body of legislation that was socially so useful it was retained into the 20th century, even though the Negroes who helped to write it were brutally disenfranchised and driven from political life. He revealed that far from being the tragic era white historians described, it was the only period in which democracy existed in the South. This stunning fact was the reason the history books had to lie, because, to tell the truth, would have acknowledged the Negro's capacity to govern and fitness to build a finer nation in a creative relationship with poor whites. With the completion of his book Black Reconstruction, despite its towering contributions, despite his advanced age, Dr. Du Bois was still not ready to accept a deserved rest in peaceful retirement.
The Du Bois Legacy Committee of Great Barrington wishes to thank all speakers, organizers, participants, and audience for the 2022 W.E.B. Du Bois Legacy Festival. We'd like to recognize festival collaborators, Bridge and Jacob's Pillow, as well as financial sponsors Simon's Rock, Mass Cultural Council, Great Barrington's Local Cultural Council, and the Davis Center at Williams College. In-kind support and services were provided by Bridge and the Mahaiwe. Thank you to all sponsors, collaborators, and everyone involved for making this year's festival possible.